Edinburgh is my favorite city, and while it has changed dramatically since the days of Robert Louis Stevenson, much still remains the same. Walk with me while we take a look around. Edinburgh is an international crossroads, crowded and busy, especially during the Fringe Festival, which was going on when we arrived. Yet the mark of time is but a footstep away. Robert Louis Stevenson was born here on November 13th, 1850, and while the house where he was born is a private residence and therefore off limits, the house where he was raised and where he roamed is right around the corner. All right, everybody, welcome back. Today we are in Edinburgh, and we're standing on Harriet Road here, and this is the boyhood home of Mr. Robert Louis Stevenson, and we're staying here actually inside for a couple of days, so I will show you the interior, and from here will be our starting point on this trip as we explore Scotland. But before we look inside the Stevenson house, let's take a brisk walk in this neighborhood, just as Stevenson would have. Not far from here, near Dean Village on the waters of Leith, is St. Bernard's Well. Discovered in 1760 by several schoolboys, the waters were believed to possess healing powers. The circular temple we see today was designed by Alexander Nasmyth in 1789. The statue depicts the Greek goddess of health, Hygeia. And the temple itself was inspired by Roman architecture. Stevenson certainly walked here, although the area is much changed. It makes for a tranquil and inspirational morning walk. We experienced good weather in Edinburgh, and walking along the waters of Leith in the morning turned out to be exactly what I needed. It was like walking back in time, a feeling that I would experience in Scotland more than any other place I've ever visited. All right, my friends, we are in the master bedroom at the Robert Louis Stevenson boyhood home, and I'm going to just pan around in a second here and show you what the room looks like today. It is owned by Mr. John McPhee and his wonderful family, and so the books that you see here are all his private library, and this entire home is populated with a wonderful collection of books. Mr. McPhee is an avid book collector and reader, so let's just take a quick look around right now at the master bedroom. Looking out the window, many of these buildings were here in Stevenson's time, and so here we have a classical view of ancient chimneys upon which Stevenson and his family were quite familiar with. The home, of course, is modernized, and the interior belongings would be unfamiliar to Stevenson, and yet the McPhee family has done a splendid job in their decorations, adornments, and collections. It is comfortable and splendid, really, and I salute their dedication to Stevenson's legacy, which is represented by numerous volumes and statues and busts. Appropriately, there are books and books everywhere. And here is the main dining room in the front of the house. Imagine the conversations the Stevenson family had. Indeed, I am literally walking in the footsteps of Robert Louis Stevenson. The neighborhood buildings themselves are much as they were. Close your eyes and imagine a hard-packed dirt road and horses and carriages and people walking to and fro. I love the fact that so many streets in Edinburgh have retained their old world charm. Such places evoke a strong sense of history, romance, and the tales of the past, which is all part of Edinburgh's attraction. Here are stirred feelings of deep ancestral connections, nostalgia, and a touch of melancholy for a bygone era. Follow me down to the Princess Street Gardens, where a monument is dedicated to Stevenson. This monument is not much really, simply acknowledging that Stevenson often visited this garden below Edinburgh Castle. Unfortunately, I witnessed an American tourist leading a group of people to this monument where he erroneously stated it was the final resting place of Stevenson, which it most certainly is not. Here we are in the Princess Street Gardens, and this is the monument to Robert Louis Stevenson that they have here not far from the fountain. Another short walk from the Stevenson House, and we find ourselves on Queen Street, where we visited the National Portrait Gallery. We're in the National Portrait Gallery in Edinburgh, and we're going to be looking at some very rare material involving Robert Louis Stevenson. Let's take a look. And over here on my right is a bust of Sir Walter Scott. Sir Walter Scott and Robert Louis Stevenson are right next to each other here in the National Gallery of Edinburgh. The National Portrait Gallery on Queen Street is beautiful, and it is filled with some of the most breathtaking pieces of art I have ever seen. Take your time when you visit the National Portrait Gallery on Queen Street, or when you visit any of the national galleries in Edinburgh. They are incredible places to visit, and just take your time and get lost in history. This painting of Robert Louis Stevenson was painted by Count Girolamo Nerli, and it's an oil on canvas. It shows you a Robert Louis Stevenson perhaps later in his life when he was exhausted from illness and rather melancholy looking. Stevenson's portrait is next to that of his father, Thomas Stevenson, who was quite a successful businessman and owned numerous lighthouses. It is near a fantastic portrait of Sir Walter Scott. The Walter Scott portrait is one of the most beautiful paintings I've ever seen of an author. It is fantastic in every way. The Walter Scott painting was done by Sir William Allen, and again, this is one of the most beautiful paintings I've ever seen, and I will be doing an episode about Walter Scott in the future. The Free Writers Museum is located on the Royal Mile at Lady Stairs Close. It is here that Scotland's triumvirate of beloved writers, Burns, Scott, and Stevenson, are represented by manuscripts and rare items. Scott's meerschaum pipe is on display, along with Stevenson's boots. So too is the cabinet Stevenson's family owned, made by none other than Deacon Brodie. Brodie was a cabinet maker by day and burglar by night. The duality of Brodie's wicked life is believed by most scholars as an influence on Stevenson's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Deacon Brodie's Tavern is just a few steps away from the Writers' Museum, and it is a great place to have lunch and a pint of Innis and Gunn. This site is believed to be the location where Deacon Brodie had his woodworking business. And But a stone's throw from Deacon Brodie's Tavern is St. Giles Cathedral, which was founded in 1124 by King David. This is one of the most beautiful cathedrals I've ever been in, and you really should take your time and go in and see this. Inside, you will find a bronze marker dedicated to the memory of Robert Louis Stevenson. When Queen Elizabeth II died in 2022, her coffin rested here for a day before being taken to Westminster Abbey. Blackness Castle is but 15 miles from Stevenson's boyhood home, and knowing that he most certainly had been here, I can only wonder at what he felt as he watched the tall ships glide across the Firth of Forth as they approached the harbor, their sails billowing with wind. And this is Chowroma, which, back in Stevenson's time, was called the Rutherford, and this is where he used to drink. And he notated that in his many letters. Following the back alleys and side streets of Edinburgh, and behind me is an Italian restaurant which used to be the drinking place of Robert Louis Stevenson. We've been following in his footsteps for several weeks now, and what an experience it's been. Chowroma was closed when I visited it, but the kind-hearted cleaning woman took one look at me and took pity on my poor soul and let me come in and look around. And so I was afforded a free look inside the restaurant. Chowroma, formerly the Rutherford, was decorated in lots of piratical and nautical material, lending a very interesting atmosphere for those wishing to dine here. Arthur Conan Doyle was also a regular here during his lifetime. Sean Connery had been there. There's a photograph of him there. And numerous other celebrities have stopped by the Chowroma, which previously was called the Hispaniola. That should sound familiar to you Stevenson fans. There is much in Edinburgh to remind visitors today of Robert Louis Stevenson, but it is a city that is constantly evolving, a beautiful city. There are things here that he would recognize and many things that would leave him baffled should he walk the streets today. But especially the Stevenson house, which is but steps away from the gaslit era that Stevenson himself would have known. Fare thee well, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this look back at the amazing life and career of Robert Louis Stevenson, brief though it may be. Stay well, stay happy, feed your beautiful minds. Read a book.